Hi Pragya. Hi. Hi Vitika. Hi Zubair. Hi guys. People are still joining, so I'm waiting, all right? Hi Jyoti. Hi Upasna. Okay. How do I move this? So can you see the screen? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, now let me start. Um, for this job alike, I wanted to do on the formative and summative assessments. Why? The reason is people are not able to distinguish between the formative and the summative assessments. So that's very important to know the distinction between these two and what are the advantages of the formatives before going on into the summative. So that's why I chose this topic. My name is Shylaja Ramji, you would know that. And I'm a PhD in French. And I've been teaching IB since 2014. I'm in the Kodaikanal International School. And what am I teaching is the language acquisition, a French MYP grade 9 and 10, what we call in IB. And then I'm teaching DP 1 and 2, French also. And I also teach TOK. All right, and I'm very passionate about both French and TOK, and I mean it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's challenging, and yeah. So that's about me. So if you want to ask any questions later, you could. But let's move on. Now, what is assessment actually? So when we talk about assessments, as you can read this, can you read it? Should I shift this to 1 second? Somebody's waiting.
We can read it.
Okay. Hi. Yeah. All right. So when we talk about a wide variety of methods and tools, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by the methods or tools? There are direct measures and there are indirect measures in which we will be able to assess the student learning. For example, we have there are direct measures you could have, such as the tests, the papers that you ask them to present, the examinations, and then it could also be a performance by the students, their final project. And the indirect measures are our perspectives on them. What do we know about the child? What do we know about the student? Are we Do we know that they are motivated to learn? Do we know that they are gaining in knowledge? Do we know that they are learning a specific skill properly? Just a moment. Yeah. Yeah. So these are there are, when we talk about methods or tools, there are direct as well as indirect methods of school. And why do we have to evaluate the student? Why is it very important to evaluate the student? It is for us to see whether they are academically ready for the next step. How much are they progressing in their learning? Okay, what is the skill that they have acquired? What is the skill that they had, and what is the skill that they have acquired, and what is the skill that they need to acquire? All these things are very important. So that is why we need to have an assessment. We are going to talk about the different kinds of assessment, but then first we need to know why is it that we should assess. Okay, so here we are saying that assessment includes finer, minor tasks. We give them a lot of tasks. We give them homework. We give them a quiz. All these comes under the minor tasks. Okay, we ask them to write a 3-line understanding of what we have done in class. We give them an exit slip. So these come under the minor tasks that we give them in class, or we can also give them as homework. Okay, so this everything is an assessment. Whatever we do when we see a child talking to his friend, asking an explanation of something that has happened, even that is an assessment that we do of the kid. All right. How do I go on? Okay. Now, what are the types of assessments? The types of assessments are diagnostic, formative, interim, and summative assessments. Now, diagnostic. I think diagnostic assessment is one of the most important because this really helps us to know where the child stands. Okay, so for example, when I told you that I teach French, right? So when they come into the 9th grade, I would like to know whether they know the basic verb conjugation, whether they know the present tense, whether they know adjectives, whether they know adverbs. So what do they know? So this diagnostic assessment is very, very important because it helps us to find out exactly what the child knows. And what is the advantage in that? Knowing what the child knows, because it helps us to tailor make our unit plans. It helps us to tailor make our lesson plans. So, and that will help the learning. Hence, diagnostic assessments are very important. Then formative assessments, like I told you, formative assessments can be anything like a quiz, but formative assessment is essentially a feedback that we give to the students. It's a feedback that we give on where they are standing. The formative assessment makes the student reflect on what he knows and what he needs to improve, what are his strengths. So formative assessments is very important. And most importantly, formative assessments are not graded. So I find that many of the educators, they know everything about the IB. They know what is there to know about all kinds of their rubrics and everything. However, they make the small mistake of mixing up the formative and summative assessments. Formative assessments are not graded. Formative assessments is an assessment that you write down. You may write down in your notebook telling that this child has learned this, and this. So that's very important. You do not grade, you do not give a mark, you do not say it's an A, it's a B, or an E. Okay, so that's how the formative assessment is very important. Then you have the interim assessment. As the name goes, the interim assessment is mid semester. Okay, and it gives you an idea of where the child is at, where the student is at, and what you need to do to ensure that the child is academically ready to do the semester exam, what he has to do.
Warning in progress. Research one can do, because when you talk about nizams,
so we have then the summative assessment. So what is a summative assessment? The summative assessment is generally done at the end of a period. It could be at the end of a semester, or it could be at the end of a year. And a summative assessment could be is mostly written work. It could be as I said, final performance. It could be the final project, or it could be even an oral assessment that we have in the language. Okay, and yeah, so that takes care of these 4 assessments. Yeah. So what do we mean by an assessment and what is an evaluation? Are these two just the same or is there a slight difference in these two? Just a moment, please. Yeah. All right. I've admitted. Okay. Right. So what is the difference between these two? Between an assessment and an evaluation, what is the difference? So an assessment is an ongoing process. Just a moment. It's not moving. Okay, an assessment is an ongoing process. That is, you are able to provide feedback. You are able to have a perspective of the gain and the knowledge of the student. And you are able to see whether the student has gained a specific skill. And evaluation is more an end process. It comes about. Okay. No, why it's not moving? Yeah. Just a moment. All right. So here we are. Yeah. So evaluation is, as I said, it's more a judgment. That is, it comes right at the end and it denotes the end of a process. Okay. So assessments can include can include the minor tasks, formative homework, etc. And evaluation is the test, the final performance, a written exam, a written paper, or if it's an oral, then it could also be the oral exam. All right. Okay, so the formative approach. Now, a little bit about the history of the formative approach. Sorry, people keep coming in and I need to, sort of ensure that they come in. Yeah, so as you can see here, the formative approach is based on the teaching practices and respectful evaluation, taking into consideration the learning speed and needs of each student. And it involves the students in their evaluation by making them reflect on their process of learning. Now, this was actually by Michael Scriven. It was as early as 1967. This formative approach was taken into consideration as early as 1967 by Michael Scriven. So he said that it was he who actually coined the formative and the summative approach. And in the formative approach, he said that we seek information on how to ensure that the student learns. So in the formative approach, we are trying our best to find out how the student learns, what is his best method of learning, and how to ensure that through this method, he is able to attain the final academic, I see, to make sure that he's academically ready to assume the papers and tests that he has to do. That is what the formative approach is about.
तूने देखा है पूजा
And
पूजा में
then you have the a formative approach. Then actually it was not him. It was much earlier in 1962. There was this person called Cronbach. Why I'm telling you this history is earlier it used to be just a judgment and evaluation. It was later on that they found that the student has to be aware of what he's learning and how he's learning in order to ensure that he does his best. Even IB specifies that it is not what you learn, but it is how you learn that that really influences the student learning. Not only what, but how. Hence, a formative approach is of a very of great importance when we try to teach something, when we try to facilitate a student's learning. All right. And here we have, yeah, in this, I would also like to share, now that I have shared the history of Cronbach to Scriven to the methods of Barbier and Nunziati, who were also, very gave great importance to the formative
नहीं,
assessment.
ये ना नीचे नहीं है ना उसके नीचे. हाँ?
Then we have, what is the purpose of the formative assessment? Why are we emphasizing the formative assessments? Because it is to ensure that the students, to monitor the student learning and also to provide an ongoing feedback to the staff as well as to the students. Just a minute, please. Thank you. Okay, so what is the purpose of the formative approach? The formative approach not only is to monitor how the student learns, okay, by the direct and the indirect measures that we spoke about, but it is also to ensure the student reflects upon how he is learning, and it is also to have a feedback from the student for the student and for the teacher. As I said, to tailor make the lesson plans and the unit plans. Now moving on to what is the goal of the formative approach. Now I did speak about the goals, but here you have all the goals in a, in a specific pattern regulated to monitor student learning. Like I told you, that is, we need to know how the students is learning. It helps, the formative approach really helps in differentiation. When you're giving a test, just before giving a test, when you're, making them do a small minor test, then you are able to really understand what the student needs to learn in order to attain the standard level of the class. Okay, so that way the formative approach is really good. So for example, when I give them a listening comprehension, for example, then what I do is I give them a minor listening comprehension instead of the whole 3-minute listening comprehension or 2-minute. I give them a short 40-second listening comprehension, and in that I'm able to gauge whether the child has understood what is essential for his academic readiness. If not, I call the child and I say, hey, this is what you need to do in order to improve. So then you can, sort of, you can do the differentiation, not only in class, but out of class. Okay. So you say, okay, listen to this and this and this. You have 3 steps. You scaffold the child, you do the scaffolding to ensure that the child is able to learn without straining himself, and but also learning, definitely learning, because that is the outcome, to ensure that he has the learning outcome through scaffolding, and that is done through the formative approach. Okay, now going on to the monitor student learning to find out how the student is learning, and then present full use presenter view. Okay. Okay, it's telling me to do something. Okay. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Okay, right.
Ma'am, you press on from current slide.
Yeah, see. No, that time it stopped working, So, see, now it's working, right? Because
Yeah,
earlier it stopped working. That's why I had to go back to the, the other. So
Now this is working.
yeah, now it's
Thank you.
working. Now it's fine. Thank you. Mr. Gajendra, thank you so much. Okay, so here, now to provide ongoing feedback, all right, to tell the kid that this is what he has learned. For example, when I give them work on, suppose you're doing on vacation, all right. So, oh God, people keep entering, and is there nobody? Is only I have to admit people, is it? Okay. So, for example, when we are working on vacation, okay, and they speak on vacation, and then they do a small written task on vacation, the child is able to speak quite well on vacation, okay? But while writing, there's a problem in the verb conjugation. There's a problem in the singular and plural. Okay, so I can tell the child, hey, you're speaking well, but then you're writing as you're speaking. Your verb does not agree. You have a problem with the singular and the plural. And hence the child is aware through this feedback that when he does his summative assessment, he has to pay attention to these things. All right, the child is made aware, the child is made to reflect on his learning process. The third one, the instructors to improve the teaching. Yeah. So for example, I think many of you will be doing this. You'll be using a lot of, exit slips. Many of you, are you using exit slips?
What we can do is we can
While, to improve the teaching. Okay, so we use exit slips, and I use something like, they like flowers and things like that. They like figurative meanings. So after a concept is taught or midway through a concept, I asked each one to either draw a flower, okay, or to draw a bud, or to draw a thorn. So when they draw a flower, that means they've totally understood it. And when they draw a bud, that means, okay, they can understand, but they've not wholly understood it. And when they draw a thorn, I know, okay, this kid has not got it at all, and that's a very they like doing things like that. Instead of saying, hey, in your exit slip, please write two lines on what you've understood about today's class, instead of that, you just say, hey, write according to whether it's a bud or a flower or a thorn. Then they're more inclined to do that than write two lines. All right, so that is for instructors to improve the teaching. So the next class, I start with a lot of thorns. What were thorns in the students' learning? I start with the thorns, and then we proceed to the next step. Okay, so that way it helps instructors to improve the teaching and learning, and it helps the students to improve their learning also, because we are giving them feedback. All right, and to identify strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, so not only the students, like I told you about the oral assessment and the written assessment. So the student is able to understand that he has a problem with the verb conjugation and is singular and plural. And okay, singular and plural. And so he's able to identify his strength. But he's able to speak fluently. So he learns that. And he understands his weakness, and to target areas that need work. So by the time we come to the summative, he is able to understand the areas where there is lacunae, and he is able to sort of fill that lacunae when he approaches his graded examination. All right, so that is why the formative approach is very important, because one, it is ungraded, and two, the student knows his strengths and weaknesses through the feedback, and thirdly, he reflects on his learning. That is why the formative approach is very important. All right, and they're able to reflect on their approach to learning. So what is the learning strategies they can use in order to ensure that they learn well? So that is a whole different, it will be a whole different session, because there's a lot in that. But when you say approaches to learning, it is the learning strategies that they use that that help them to learn effectively. That is their approach to learning. All right. So now, benefits of the formative assessments. Formative assessments, definitely it is very beneficial to the learner, because there is more understanding. Okay, it gives us valuable data on what the student knows, on his performance, on how engaged he is. Like I told you earlier, the indirect measurement, where we perceive the confidence of the students, where we perceive the motivation of the students, where we perceive the knowledge that the students has, the skills, the specific skills that he has, and that which he has to improve, or the specific skills that he has learned. All these come under more understanding of the student. This gives us great insight into the student's attitude, behavior, motivation, strengths, and weakness. Okay, so because of this, we are able to provide more motivation to the student. We are able to scaffold him wherever he needs, and hence we, the progress that we see is very vivid. It is visible. You can see visible learning. The visible learning, that's very important for IB. You can see that in when we use the formative approach. Yeah. However, I think you would have had students who ask you when you give them an assessment, Miss, is it graded? First question they ask, Miss, is it graded? So the formative assessments have low stakes. They carry no grade, which I emphasize. But because of this, it might discourage some students. That is the learners, who are very good, who get it the first time. It is discouraging to them. However, it is very encouraging for students who want to learn. Okay, it really helps them. The fact that it carries no grade, it gives them more freedom to act and to engage themselves. Hence, it's very effective. Now, what are some of the strategies? So these are some of the strategies: exit slips, opening tasks. So as soon as they come into the class, instead of just sitting and talking, you just put an opening task on the board, and then they are able to, they do the task. That's also a kind of, instead of right at the end, you give them a task right in the beginning. Then think, pair, share. I think any IB educator would be aware of the think, pair, share. You think on a specific topic, then you share it with your friend, and then you share it to the whole class or the whole group. 1 minute to speak and write. So on any topic, you give them 1 minute to think, and then they either speak on that or they write on that. That also gives us a good idea. Suppose the example of vacation that I gave you, it gives us a very good idea of 1 minute. Speak on vacation for 1 minute. So we really know whether they're able to express themselves. Okay. So note check, ensure that they have their notes, ensure that they take down what is important. Then jigsaw teamwork. So you give varied things to, a group. You give varied, for example, a storyline. You put the storyline in different ways. So you give it to them, and then you see how they do it. So idea waves, which is the idea starts with one person and then it moves on. For example, I went to Dubai for vacation. I went to Sri Lanka for vacation. Okay, the second person, yeah, I went to Sri Lanka for vacation where I did surfing. The third person, yeah, I went to Sri Lanka for vacation where I did surfing and then I fed the elephants. Like that, it's an idea wave. They carry on the idea, and finally you have the whole sequence readily there for you. Then the team win. This is of course group A, B, C, and then you have debate, or you have a quiz, and Quizlet, Booklet, learning apps. Lot of online apps are available, which I use very much. So most of these, you yourself, you can formulate tailor-made formative assessments for the kids, and they really enjoy it, let me assure you. And they will also do their summatives well. All right. And no, let's not do this then. Few words about the summative assessment. Yeah, the summative assessments is more or less an evaluation. Okay. And for this, you need to prepare a rubric. So what is very important in summative assessment, that it has a very clear rubric. Number two, it is extremely fair and it has no bias. So these are the three things that are very, very important in a summative assessment. And it has a high stakes. Why? Because it is graded. It is going to come in the report. It will be in the portfolio. Hence, it's of high importance. Some examples, you all know that: midterm exam, final project paper, senior recital, whatever. All these are summative assessments. And information from summative assessment can be used formatively when student or faculty use it to guide their efforts. So when you see the summative assessments, you realize, oh, this is an area that most of them have not done well. Okay, so let me rework this area. So that way, summative assessments are very important, but it's also high stakes. So children are, get hassled by this, and they are always very tense when there is a full of pressure and tension when they have a summative. All right. Where's the next one? Okay. So that's what I said, when you're doing a summative assessment, you have to ensure that there is no bias. Okay. So we are not fully aware of all our potential biases. So how do you ensure that you don't have a bias? So that is you grade blind, that is you don't know who it is, and you don't know who is going to be there. Okay, sorry, I had to admit somebody even at this late stage. So you don't know who the student is, so that, you know, some student, you might think that that person has not answered much in class, doesn't know much, but then you find out that that person has all along been listening passively. Okay, they are passive learners, so they are learning but passively, so they have done well in their exam. So you need to be sure that you don't have a bias, and you need to create a very clear rubric. That's very, very important. Task specific rubric is extremely important to ensure that you are unbiased. And then if it's possible, if you have two teachers who are teaching the same class, then, you know, you can exchange and ensure that you are able to assess each other's papers. That also will ensure there is no bias. Okay, god, it's again stuck. Okay. Okay, the next one is fairness. So you should consider a learner's needs, the student profile. As I said, it helps in differentiation, any adjustments that need to be applied to take care of them, that is in your lesson plans and in your unit plans. And the learner is informed and understand and is able to take place in the assessment process. And he agrees that the process is appropriate. That is, yes, I know that we have done all this. Yes, I know that in the task specific rubric, I know that this should have been done. Probably I have not done that. And so hence I should be able to do it better, you know, next time. You know, that's what a student has to understand. So these are the way to for student success. So first of all, we need to set systems and routines, okay, to make sure that the student, you know, have an opening task, have an exit slip, have a, you know, midweek quiz, you know, things like that. So routines, let the students set the pace. Okay, you find out whether they have understood through your quizzes. Then increase student engagement through various activities, like, you know, which I had showed you earlier, through all those activities, online activities. And then keep all the stakeholders involved, increase student ownership, set high expectations.